Guys, happy to be back here at Shapiro Capital, and I want to talk about something that I actually did on my first transaction. Back when I bought my first deal, I was going into my junior year in college at Central Connecticut State University. And we bought a three-family house right next to a college called Trinity College. And we were able to renovate that property very quickly to prepare for the fall semester, and we were able to lease those 3 units to students, but the parents guaranteed the lease. So we went from a $250 rent to $1,100 per unit, taking the value of the property that we were all in at, $40K, up to $158K, which is what we sold it for. Now, why do I have on the board behind me, what is a 1031 exchange? Okay, and why did I write this? Don't ever pay taxes, ever, 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 okay? Now, in real estate, we use techniques to defer taxes, okay? So we use this technique to avoid taxes on a sale. Now there's 2 types of taxes, okay? There's ordinary income and there's capital gains, okay? So I'm gonna write ordinary and then cap gains, all right? This is at your income base. So the highest income base at that time was, back then, I believe, was 39.6%. It's now down to 38%. And capital gains back then was around 21%, and now it is at 23%. Also back then, you had to own a property for 6 months and 1 day. Today, it is 12 months and 1 day to get capital gains. So if I sold that property 11 months and 30 days, I would have to pay the higher tax rate, but if I waited those 2 days, I would pay the lower tax rate. But what I want you to understand is we can use Section 1031 under the IRS tax code, and it's called the like-kind exchange. So the property that I had was residential, 3 units, and then I was exchanging it into 2 properties, which were 2 6-family properties that were side by side in the same market. I was going to do the same thing, create appreciation. We now call it forced appreciation. And I was selling that property. And at the time, I hadn't identified a new property. And what you have to be very careful is when you do a 1031, you have 180 days to make that adjustment. At the same time, you have in that 180, 45 days to identify your property and contract it. And then you have 135 days to actually close it, all right? Now there is always a little wiggle room in here, and the qualified intermediary who, when you sell your property, you don't take the money, it goes to this qualified intermediary and they hold the money and then they will invest it in the new property, so you're never actually touching it. Now why is this such a good thing? Because I was able to make over 110K on that first property, and then I was able to take that money and buy 2 6 units, beautiful brick buildings. I was able to buy those buildings. I paid $480,000 for them, all right? They were on a street called Bond Street, all right? And I was able to buy those 2 with this money, and that gave me enough money to go to the properties. I actually got a loan for $420K. I put all this money into it. I rehabbed it. And when we were done, that property that we paid $484, okay, and we put roughly another $80 in financing in it, in rehab, fully rehabbed, that property ended up being worth $980,000. And do you know what I did? I borrowed 80% of this property, $784,000, and I was all in for $560, so I had another fresh $224K to play with on the deal. I also had my money back from the other deal, which was the 110, so now I had $334K to work with. That allowed me to buy my third and fourth property. Well, correct, because I had sold the first. It allowed me to buy my third and fourth property, were two 12 units, also in that same area on a street called School Street. And now I had 12 units, because I didn't sell this, I refinanced it. So that is not a taxable event. I'm refinancing, I'm taking the proceeds and I'm buying another property. I bought these properties and I was off to the races. Now all of a sudden I had 36 units and I had cash flow. And it was pretty amazing because when I finished in college, I had 58 units, I had a bunch of equity, I had cash flow, and I was able to then scale up my portfolio to doing over 25,000 units. We've owned, we've managed, and we've developed over 25,000 units. Now, we didn't have 25,000 units all at once. The most we ever had was 15, but we had a pretty big staff and a pretty big organization back then. So guys, if you want to learn about real estate, I would love to teach you. I would love to show you how to do this. So guys, comment the word real estate down below and we will see you inside of YouTube, and I love to see you in person at our next event. Let's go.